I'm Ray at R3 Performance Products. Today we're going to explain our front suspension system we built for our street mod Mustang 1965 through 1970. This kit is a bit different than anything else on the market today. We're one of the few companies that does not utilize the Mustang 2 front suspension geometry. This is completely redesigned. It's a new twist on the street car industry. As you can see, a lot of these parts look like they belong on an off-road car. Box lower control arms, billet upper control arms, uniballs, Heim joints. It's not your typical street car kit. I'm going to start with the tubular chromoly cross member that we build for our kit. This cross member slides right between the front frame rails on a 1965 through 70 Ford Mustang. As you can see, we build these cross members on a CNC precision jig to ensure the best fitment possible. Now, on these Mustangs, the frame rails vary all the time. We have a lot of these cars in our yard. We've measured them. We've come up with a measurement that we feel is going to fit every car the best that it possibly can. Right here we have a box lower control arm. We use this arm on our kit for a couple of different reasons. Traditionally, you typically see a tubular lower control arm. This box design is superior in strength. It's not going to break. It's made out of 1/8 inch and 3/16 steel. Again, plate design, our shock pocket in the bottom cradles the bottom of the shock and allows us to put a bolt right through the control arm. This control arm also utilizes a uniball instead of a ball joint. Way stronger, race car inspired design. I'm going to move over here to our upper shock mounts and upper control arm mount. As you can see, this mount cradles the top of the frame, and your upper control arm actually mounts to these two pivot points, and your upper shock mounts to these tabs right here. Again, this kit is a bit stronger than anything else out on the market. It is race car inspired. We do not have our uprights, our spindles, sand casted. They are hand built plate fabrication, again, plate steel fabrication. These spindles are made here at R3. We do not sub this work out. Everything here is made at this facility. We do use Wilwood brakes on all of our kits. Wilwood makes a really nice billet aluminum hub assembly. On this particular kit, we have a 13-inch rotor. We're going to be using a 6-piston caliper, which is going to help this car stop really well. These are our upper control arms. As you can see, they're billet aluminum. Again, uniball instead of a ball joint. We use a through shaft for the upper mount. I showed you the mount that attaches to the stock frame rail. Now also, what's really unique about our upper control arm is you can see there's two sets of nuts here. There's a jam nut, and this is actually a sleeve that goes into the upper control arm. What this sleeve does is it has a left hand and right hand thread. This will allow you to adjust camber and caster without removing the upper control arm. Typically on these kits that you see out there, you have to remove the bolt in the top to make any kind of camber or caster adjustment. With our kit, you do not have to do that. In our kit, we also have a brake caliper mount. This will allow us to change out to a different type of brake if we want to in the future. If we want to start running a different brake on our upright, all we have to do is make a different mount to mount a different style caliper. All of our kits have an option to run a sway bar. We do recommend the sway bar. We've made our own end links. This is a hollow tube construction sway bar. It does help a lot in the front end. We also make all of our own end links here. This is a right hand and left hand thread for adjustability. Heim joints. Something I didn't mention, I'm going to jump back over to the control arms. The Heim joints have them as well. These are Delron infused stainless steel Heim joints. This will help with any kind of deflection for road noise or a rough ride. A lot of people think that you're going to get a rough ride when you use a Heim joint. That's not true. Our kit does ride very nice. Something that I didn't go over here was our shocks as well. We are using currently Alden American shocks. They're right here out of Long Beach, California. We know Garrett, the owner, pretty well over there, and he's worked with us quite a bit to get these shocks dialed in. We have an 11 position rebound adjustment on these. There are shock upgrades. You could call us and we can talk about what your needs are, and we can go from there. So I've showed you pretty much everything that comes in our kit. There is a lot of different options. Just give us a call and we'll talk to you about what your specific needs are, and we'll put something together that works for your car. Trey and Danny will be installing this kit on a 1970 Mustang right behind me. So stay tuned and enjoy the install.
Hello, I'm Danny.
And I'm Trey, and today at R3 Performance Products, we're going to show you just how easy it is to bolt on our Street Mod suspension kit.
So what we have here is a 1970s Mustang, and we will be walking you through the procedures of removing your old suspension and installing our Street Mod series kit. So let's get started. Welcome back. So what we got going on here is Trey is going to be removing the brake and hub assembly, and as soon as he's done removing the brake and hub assembly, he'll start by removing the tie rod, then your inner torsion rod, and then your sway bar disconnect. And as soon as you have all those out of the way, we'll move on to the lower control arm and the upper control arm. All right, now that we've got all that out of the way, we're going to start with removing the lower control arm, the spindle, and the upper control arm.
Pull that forward.
As you can see, we have our McPherson strut compressor on here, so the spring don't get out of control. Now we move to the top of the car to remove the upper plate and shock. And that is that. Now that we've got our suspension out of the way, we're going to go ahead and move on to the steering. As you'll notice, there's two 5/16 bolts on the passenger side of the vehicle holding on the idler arm. And I'm going to take these out while Trey works on the driver's side and removes the steering box, which is also held on by three 5/16 bolts. Now that we've got the suspension and steering out of the way, we're going to move on to body. I've taken the liberty of jotting down a couple lines on the inside body lip as to where you're going to want to cut. And you're going to follow your line all the way down to the bottom, just the top of the frame rail. Make sure not to cut into the frame rail. And then you're going to want to follow parallel with your frame rail back and cut all the way through.
So, I'm going to be demonstrating on how to clean up your frame here and remove the excess brackets that didn't come off when you were cutting them. First, you're going to want to start with the hammer and a punch. You're going to want to put it right on those welds there and just punch a hole in the center. Like so. Once you got that done, you're going to want to get your drill. Today we're using a Roto Broach 7/16 bit. We found it's the easiest way to get these off. So as you can see, I already center punched those before, just for the video purpose. Now since I got them drilled out, I'm going to get my chisel here. Just get right in between the frame rail here. Give them a little tap. And they should come right off. Like so. So as you can see, these 4 holes is where I drilled them out. So this particular bracket had 4 welds on it. So after you get these bottom ones done, you're going to want to move on to your sway bar bracket, which has 3 spot welds here, and it has 4 on the inner of the frame. Once you get those drilled out and get that removed, you're going to move on to your stiffener here. And this one has about 4 or 5 here and about 4 over here. So get all those punched and drilled and it should come right off. Alright, so once you get that bracket removed, you can go ahead and grab your grinder here with the sand pad. Go ahead and clean up all these spot welds here, make it look nice. Throw some primer on it, and you'll be ready to install your suspension.
Alright, now that you've gotten all your suspension removed and made all your cuts, you're going to want to position your subframe in between the frame rails, and then you're going to want to locate your upper control arm mount and coil-over mount. You're going to want to slide it over the inner fender or frame rail. You're going to want to put it into position like that. You're going to want to make sure that it is over the lip of the inner subframe. You're going to want to locate your 2 3/8 bolts. You're going to want to slide them in halfway through the rear holes that are factory. Doing this on both driver and passenger side. Then you're going to want to position your subframe up. You're going to want to continue your holes through both sides. You're going to want to get a clamp of some sort. Could be a C-clamp, a crush clamp, and you're going to want to use these holes as your drill point. Using a 3/8 drill bit, you're going to want to drill all 3 holes on both outer passenger and driver, and then you're going to want to go and drill all 3 inside bolts from the inside of the subframe. Alright, now that you've got your subframe installed and your control arm mount installed, you're going to want to go on and locate your lower control arm. Once with your control arm installed, you should be able to let it hang freely and locate your coil-over mount and your hardware. With your adjuster facing outwards, you're going to want to insert your upper bolt. The control arm should swing up and fit nicely. Now you're ready to move on to the upper control arm. Now it's time to locate your spindle and install your spindle. And you're going to want to remember to use anti-seize on all of these fine thread bolts. Now that your spindle is installed, you're going to want to locate your brake caliper mount. With your brake caliper mount installed, you're going to want to tighten up your 2 caliper mount bolts before you install your rotor. Alright, now that you've installed your rotor, you're going to want to locate your caliper. And on this particular application, we're using 6-piston Willwood calipers. And now that you've installed all of this, you're going to want to go ahead and take the time to go over each bolt, check them, make sure they're tight, and then you're on to the next step. Okay, now that you've got your suspension components installed, we're going to want to move on to the sway bar. Locating your dale rim bushings, you're going to want to insert the driver and the passenger side. I've taken the time to grease them up for easier installation. So what I've done here is I've put one of my link bars mounts on for easier installation. Alright, now that you've got your sway bar installed, you're going to want to move on and insert your first bolt and nut tab. And since I've already installed this kit one time, my holes are already pre-drilled, but what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to locate the rear bolt for the sway bar mount, and you're going to want to drill both driver and passenger side. And then you're going to also insert the next nut tab in the back 1.5-inch hole that's factory. And at this point, you're going to want to tighten them. And once you've tightened up both driver and passenger side, you're going to want to locate your clamp. Once you've installed both bolts, you're going to want to slide it in, leaving about 1/8 of an inch gap. And then you're going to want to continue on to your sway bar link side, getting both driver and passenger side on and installed. I've already installed this side for leverage reasons. Locating your sway bar link mount, you're going to want to insert your Allen head bolt on the inside. And then your lower. And after you've gone ahead and tightened everything, we'll move on to steering. Alright, now your sway bar is done, we're going to move on to steering. So you're going to want to install your rack from the back side through the passenger side first. Once you've got it in, you'll want to position it and you'll locate your mounts in your hardware kit. These pieces sit under the rack. Then you're going to want to locate your top mounts. Once you've located your top mounts, you'll locate your U-bolts. Once you've got it all assembled, you want to insert your hardware and tighten all of these down. And once you've tightened all of these down, you're going to want to move out to the tie rod. Now that you're at the tie rod, you'll insert both of your misalignments and slip your heim joint into your tie rod. Once you've done this, you're going to want to go through, tighten up all your parts, all your nuts, bolts, make sure everything is tight, and onto the alignment.